What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Punk Rock Radar. Today, we are going to be talking about Australian punk legends Frenzal Rhomb. We're going to be ranking each of their 10 full-length albums, S through D, S being the best, D being the worst. And because we have a nice even number today, 10 records, there's going to be 2 in every single tier, including the D tier. And speaking of D, I am joined by Dylan, aka Screeching Bottle Rocket. How you doing today, man?
Fantastic. Get to talk about one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, and I told you right before we started, this was probably the easiest tier list we've ever done for me. I wrote it down like a month and a half ago. We were waiting for the Cup of Pestilence, and I didn't change a single thing. I usually have a list with cross out, cross out, cross out, but this is pretty cut and dry for me. How do you feel about this?
Like I said, I didn't make my final decisions until right before we started, but I had a general framework of what I wanted to do, and I feel pretty confident in my decisions.
Yeah, mine's like pretty firmly split in Frenzal era 1, Frenzal era 2. I think, you'll see, but we'll get straight into it now. The first album we're going to talk about here is Coughing Up a Storm. Came out in 1995 on Shock Records. So pretty good debut album. I think Genius is a solid song. Dylan's got the vinyl. Is that the S-BAM one you said?
Yes, sir.
On some beautiful vinyl.
German record label.
So, Dylan, what are your thoughts on the Coughing Up a Storm debut?
It's pretty solid. In the grand scheme of things, it's pretty hard for it to compete with some of the stuff that would come after. But songs I got penciled in here as some of my favorites: Genius,
Yep,
Fraud, Run, Suburban Myth, not to be confused with the Less Than Jake song, Suburban Myth, Sick and Tired, and Infotainment. I think those are all pretty solid songs. This one is C+ for me.
it's going in the C tier.
Yes, sir. Solid C.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of like Less Than Jake overlap with them, with like the Liberation Records and the Race Around Uranus tour. Dylan, I'm going D here. I thought about C. I'm putting in D. I think Genius is a really good song, especially for our first album. And the songs you mentioned, of course, but I'm just putting in D just because I rarely ever listen to it. So that has to factor in somewhere. So we'll move along here. Up next, we've got Not So Tough. Came out in 1996, again on Shock and Liberation Records. So 1 year later, Dylan, you were at C before. Did they get any better here? What are you doing with this one?
I think the quality of the songs is very similar. I do think this is a pretty big step back when it comes to production quality, though. It doesn't sound as polished as the first record. It's very sounds like it was recorded in like a dumpster or something. I don't know what happened there. So this one, now that I realize we're gonna have 2 per tier, let's put Coughing in the D tier, or not Coughing. Too tough. Too not so tough now in the D tier.
Okay. So we're pretty much flipped on these two. I'm going C. I actually like the way this thing sounds. I think because the songs are pretty fast and heavy, so I kind of like the production. For me, like up to this point, Punch in the Face is their best song. Disappointment's another good track. Some
Parasite.
decent ones on the end. And then I know you love all these secret tracks.
Yeah, I forgot to mention some favorites. Yeah, those ones: Parasite, Uncle Ken.
Yeah, Uncle Ken is good.
Urban Myth, and You Are a Knob.
All right, so I'm going to be on the left, Dylan's on the right. Again, I forgot to label these. We made this list, very bright Crayola style list here, but forgot to label them. But that's okay.
Is that a reference to the next album? Yes, and I was not involved in the creative process for making this template, but I do believe Our layout today is a reference to this next album we're going to talk about. My personal favorite Frenzal Rhomb album, Meet the Family. Man, this album is just full of bangers, and I'm trying to read the track list, but the font they used on here is nearly impossible to read. So let's go with some favorites. This is my first S tier. We got Mum, Change the Locks, Mr. Charisma, one of my favorite Frenzal Rhomb songs. Racist, Ship of Beers. What else? Constable Care. Just an awesome album. Really funny. Frenzal's a funny band. This is a funny album. I love the songs. Fuck yeah.
S tier. I thought you were gonna do it, but now, dude, like, so what? I got to see how the rest of your list shakes out. Like, I think this is good, but I'm putting it in B. I think it's in right at the average Frenzal record. This is the first one with Lindsay on guitar, last one on Liberation Records, so we'll just shout that out right there. But I'm going B tier on All in the Family. And Dylan, I gave it like a couple extra listens just because I know you like it so much. I started originally thinking C, but I put it in B, kept it there. It's a good record. It's definitely a step up from the first two. So here's how we're shaking out so far. Up next, Dylan, this was my first album by them. This is the first one I heard. I had seen them on tour with NoFX and the Mad Caddies in like 2000 or 2000, maybe 2001 or 2. And I bought this CD there. And Dylan, I don't really care for this one much. I think it's pretty good. You Are Not My Friend is a good song, but even then, even owning the physical one back there, I didn't listen to this too much. So I'm going to put this one in C. I think All in the Family is clearly better. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't like it as much, but it's better than the first two albums. So, we'll put Camel in the B tier. Yeah, You Are Not My Friend is good. Never Had So Much Fun is awesome. Do You Want to Fight Me? That little guitar riff is classic. And what else? Let's Drink a Beer. Awesome album, but let's do a B tier on it. Solid B tier.
Okay, so we'll move right along here. Up next, Dylan, if you want to take us into Shut Your Mouth, released in 2000 on Epic Records and Fat Wreck, later reissued by Epitaph. And I saw an interview with Lindsay where he said Sony shoved their heads in a bowl of money and it smelt good, and that is the reason for the signing. So what are your thoughts on Shut Your Mouth? I'll catch the next train when it comes. Now I'm coming home.
I think it's a pretty unremarkable album. I would say probably their worst as far as the quality of the songs go. It just seems like they got their advance and they just kind of fucked around in the studio, honestly. I'll say Had Enough is all right. Everything Is Fucked is pretty fun. But just not a great album. Local Resident Failure, that's a decent song too. Let's do a D tier on Shut Your Mouth. It's the only album I don't own in some form.
I paused. So, all right, so we're back.
Don't pause it when I disappear. I'll just fix it.
All right. Yeah, I'm also going D tier. This is the one, like, I listened to this one least. I got this, Dylan. This was like maybe like 2007 or 2008. Fat was doing this thing where you got like 10 records for like $40, like the vinyl. And this was one of the ones they were just throwing, I guess they were shrinking the warehouse or whatever, but that's where I got this. Never connected with me. I'm surprised, that this was the major label one because, yeah, probably my least favorite. So I'm with Dylan. We're both going D on Shut Your Mouth. And let's move on here, Dylan. Up next, we've got Souci. I'm pronouncing it the way the FOD does in the song. Before that, I wasn't too sure. Dylan has got this one I was just listening to, so I have the CD here. This is going to be my first A tier album. I remember when I heard this at first, I thought this was a huge step up for the band. At this point, definitely my favorite stuff they recorded. You've got Russell Crowe's band on here. You've got Punisher, Who'd Be a Cop, and I Went Out with a Hippie.
Bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good songs on this one. So I'm going A on Souci. What say you, Mr. Dylan?
At least we know the Russell Crowe band's a fucking pile of shit.
Oh boy. I just realized I made a mistake in my list here. So we're gonna put Souci in the B tier, but it's the best of the Bs. Yeah, this is a good album. It's interesting. It's one of their more I wouldn't say like hardcore, but it's just like all fast. Like the only slow song I think is like Lead Poison Gene, which is pretty cool, but the rest of it's just like, you know, like really like drilling like that snare drum into your head, with like Who'd Be a Fucking Cop and World's Fuck This Cunt and stuff. Like just a real good album. So let's do a B+ for Souci.
All right. I have a few questions about this next one here. Forever Malcolm Young. So when this came out, I like coming off Souci, I was like, this is a badass album. I couldn't wait for Forever Malcolm Young to come out. And I don't know if you remember, Dylan, but this was really hard to find when it came out. I remember I had to get it off eMusic. I had to like buy the MP3 album. I don't own this in any capacity. So you have the CD. When I'm streaming this, like, so this is the only one I don't own too. It sounds terrible.
Compressed to fuck
on Spotify, but I still really, really like this album. I think this is like where we get the beginning of modern Frenzal. Like, I'm a backwards fucking useless piece of dog shit. That style where like the heavierness comes like more to form on Smoko and Hi-Vis. And then we've got Forever Malcolm Young, the opening track. When Will I See You at the ICU? Fuck You and Your Stupid Band. Lots of bangers on here, but this is going to be my B+ album. I considered A, but couldn't do it. But what are your thoughts on this? You have the CD. You might have a better opinion, but it looks like you're running out of high tiers.
I haven't listened to the CD in a while, but from what I can recall, it is like real compressed and like it almost sounds like you're watching like a YouTube video in like the lowest quality setting or something. It's fucking, I don't know what happened with this thing. Yeah, this album kind of has a cult following. There's a lot of people who swear this is Frenzal Rhomb's best album. I'm not one of them. We're going to go with the C tier on Malcolm Young. Favorite song in this album is Johnny Ramone was in a fucking good band, but he was a cunt.
Yeah.
Gabba Gabba, you suck.
So did this eventually come out on Fat or?
I don't think so. I think this was self-released or had like it had a label in Australia, but not in the US. I'm definitely not on Fat. Okay. But my CD says, how much did I fucking pay for this records, which is their like their own label, like Less Than Jake has Sleep It Off. Frenzal Rhomb has that.
All right. So let's move along here. So Dylan, we've got Smoko at the Pet Food Factory next, which I put in my top 10 albums of all time. I had it in at number 4 of my all-time favorite records. I've got the first 9 songs all on my playlist, and I've got 2 more. I've got 11 of the 16 songs saved. I said everything I could possibly say about this in the video, but this is an all-time great album. Frenzal like blows everything out of the water here. This is a top tier album, S tier for literally any band there is. This will be a S tier record all day long. One of my absolute favorite albums. So what do you have to say about Smoko?
man, I like an album after this a little bit more than this one. But really, I mean, they just, ever since they started recording at the Blasting Room, they've been like firing on all cylinders. Yeah, this is a really solid A tier album for me. Wow. Bird Attack, Bird Attack. Just the album starts so fast and it doesn't slow down. I think it's like, what is it? It's less than 30 minutes, I want to say. And there are 16 songs in 26 minutes. So yeah, just really like super fast and to the point. Like they don't fuck around on this album. 5,000 Cigarettes, Cockroach on the Light Switch. Just because it's soap. Whole fucking album is great, but I like this next one we're gonna talk about a little more.
All right, go for it.
For various reasons. So
I couldn't find a better place for you away from me, but now I'm here to get the damage done.
So second to last here, we got a Hi-Vis High Tea. So Meet the Family is my 1A for my favorite Frenzal albums, and this one is my 1B. And really, I mean, depending on the day, either of these could be my favorite album. This album, it's a little different. Like, there's a lot of slower songs, but most bands like their slower songs, I would be like not into it, you know, like Green Day or NoFX or whatever. But Frenzal Rhomb does the slow stuff so fucking well. That I actually like some of the slower stuff faster, or more than the faster stuff. So like, so let's say Food Court. I don't know why Food Court I like it so much. It's just like an outro, but it stands out on its own. What else? Beer in a Shot's a slower song. And then you got all the fast shit. Classic Pervert, Ray Ann's, Stacking Shelves, probably my favorite on the album. Definitely S tier for me. I like it just a little more than Smoko.
All right. So I am also in the S tier on this one. And this was like the one where it was like a little close between this one and the following one. But, you know, I'll loop in the Cup of Pestilence here since that's the last one. I feel like I have the same opinion of both of them. I think they're both slightly below Smoko, but this one has, for me, Rayon and Expat are my two favorites on this, and I think both of those would be the two best songs on Cup of Pestilence. So for that reason, I'm giving it the slight edge, but I'll just move us straight into this one. Dylan, the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, you know, it's still like in the vein of the last two, but I think it's a notch below. The more I listen to it, the more I can see it possibly overtaking Hi-Vis. Like we've said, you know, Gone to the Dogs, probably our favorite song in here, but Dead Man's Underpants, Instant Coffee, Dog Tranquilizer, How to Make Grave Ox, and the Old Mate Neck Tattoo kind of has the spirit of what you were talking about on the last one. It's one of my favorites on here too. So I'm going S Hi-Vis, and this is an A++. Just barely missed my S tier for Cup of Pestilence. It looks like you're going to be right there with me in the A tier, but what do you have to say about this one?
Yeah, it's like I said in the last video, we did the best of April when this came out. It's not really an improvement over the last two. It's just a continuation mainly, which isn't a bad thing. But I do miss the variety of Hi-Vis, both in tempo and in like, I don't know, just it's not as versatile an album as Hi-Vis. I can listen to Hi-Vis so much and not get tired of it just because how much difference there is in like the feel between each song. But this one, it's mostly just straightforward, back to what Smoko did. But I feel like the quality of the songwriting isn't quite on par with the last two albums. But yeah, all the songs you mentioned are great. So yeah, it's definitely an A tier. I didn't consider putting this in S tier at all, though.
So in the very beginning, you said that you were surprised we were doing 2 per tier. So what was your one switch you had to do?
I had my B tier. I was gonna have Malcolm Young, Camel, and Souci, and then I was gonna have Coughing and Tough in a C tier, and my lone D tier was Shut Your Mouth. So I had to move around the bottom half of my list a bit.
Yeah. So if
But,
we,
I mean,
so you would be like that. This is your original list.
and move of Coughing up to the C tier. That's what it would have been. But yeah, everything except Shut Your Mouth, I think it could be a B or a C tier album. Really, they don't have any terrible albums.
Yeah. So if we didn't have the rules, I would have Malcolm up in A, right next to Souci. I find those two pretty similar, aside from the production on Forever Malcolm Young. Speaking of which, man, like S-Bam needs to get on that and remaster it, or somebody needs to remaster it. And then it hasn't been repressed at all, right? There's no vinyl pressing of Malcolm Young, right?
Yeah, it's only on CD.
Okay.
So you Forever Malcolm Young people who swear by that being the best Frenzal album, you need to start like a change.org campaign and get the band to reissue that on vinyl or something if you really like it that much. Put your money where your mouth is.
They play a fair amount of these songs live, don't they? Like I find it funny that you're saying there's people that swear it's the best. I've never heard anybody say that. That's interesting. I thought I was kind of out on an island with it.
I've seen plenty of people when I say the last 3 albums are some of their best, and they're like, "Oh, don't sell Malcolm Young short."
I think part of that is just because it was so hard to find. You know, it does get pushed back, but I think it's definitely below the last 3, but it's not that far behind. I think if people missed it, and I think a lot of people do, they should go, give it a re-listen. But, I don't know. Find the CD if you can, but the CD is not much better, you said, but it can't be worse than the Spotify. Whatever they did to it on Spotify sounds terrible.
They ripped it from the CD.
Yeah. All right, but that's gonna do it. We did this nice and quick. Only 10 records, so we got through them. Any closing remarks, Dylan, you want to say about Frenzal?
Well, we did it nice and fast, just like the last 3 Frenzal albums. So, no, they're a great band. Probably, I think, one of the 5 longest tenured active Fat Records bands. And they're right up there, if not like better for me than like bands like Lagwagon and No Use and stuff. Like I think that they're like a super consistent band, and very few punk bands have aged as well as Frenzal Rhomb has. I think like who else is putting out such awesome records like these last 3 this late in their career? So yeah. It's really not to blow smoke up their ass if they on the off chance that they're watching this, but it's pretty impressive what they've been doing on the last 3 records.
Well, I'll piggyback too. I said this before. The last 5 albums, no other band can touch. I think it's the best string of 5 records that we've had for any punk band in the last 20 years. So
yeah. I mean, just look at where we have
the new stuff. Yeah,
the new stuff. It's both our list. It's all A or S. So that's really a testament to how good this shit that they're doing is. And I think a lot of that has to do with their sticking with the blasting room. There's just a lot of consistency between these 3 albums.
All right. So with that said, we will wrap this one up. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know how far off we are. I'm also curious your opinions on All in the Family that Dylan has above Smoko. That's probably what Meet the Family. I keep calling it
Meet
All in
the
the Family.
Family.
I must have said that 3 or 4 times, but let us know. That's the only thing I disagree with on the list. If you're more with Dylan, put Dylan down below. If you're more with me, let me know. And we will see you next time. We're going to hit Good Riddance next. So stay tuned for that. As always, subscribe, like the video. All that stuff helps grow the channel. And we will see you all next time.